The views and opinions expressed in the DILLIGAF podcast are those of the host alone and are not intended to express those of any other person, business, or entity. The DILLIGAF podcast is for entertainment only. These are my opinions and should not be interpreted as facts or advice. Think for yourself.
Keeps you up at night, yeah. Make all the demons quiet, yeah. We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've all had enough, yeah. I think that we've all had enough. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh, yeah. I think that we've all had enough.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the DILLIGAF podcast, talking about anything and everything that interests me. If it makes me think, laugh, cry, scream, rage, or say what the fuck, you're going to hear about it. My name's Tom. I'm your host. Thank you to everybody for checking out the show on YouTube, TikTok, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. Make sure you're following on social media. It's at DILLIGAF_pod on all socials. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, comment, all that kind of fun stuff. And if you ever want to shoot me an email, it's dilligafpod@gmail.com. And you can find all that and more on my Linktree, which is Linktree/dilligaf_pod, or scan the QR code right there in the corner of your screen if you're watching on the video. So, we got a fun topic this week. This week we are talking all about atheism. And to put it simply, atheism is simply the lack of belief in any deities. That's it. It's literally all it means. Atheism is not a religion. It's not a belief system. It's not a worldview. It's not even a philosophy. It simply means you don't believe in any deities. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. There is no organization, there's no sacred text, there's no central leadership, there's no dogma, no tenets, no rituals, no holy days, no temples or churches, and we don't gather every week to take attendance, compare clothing, and make ourselves feel superior to the rest of the world. But people don't want to believe that, which is kind of ironic in and of itself. But every religious person out there, I shouldn't say every because I haven't met all of them, but a good lot of religious people out there like to say that atheism is a religion, or it is a cult, or it's a belief system, or that atheists worship Satan, which is just plain fucking stupid because atheists don't believe in Satan either. And literally every last one of them is just wrong. And at this point, I'm going to go so far as to say they're all just fucking stupid when it comes to what things actually mean, what words actually mean. And they love to say that atheists are angry at God for whatever. God didn't answer your prayers, so you're angry, and that's why you're an atheist. Atheists are angry at God the same way they would be angry at Voldemort or Darth Vader or Sauron or any other fictional villain. All atheists have one single thing in common, just one. That is, again, non-belief in deities. That's it. That's the only thing that all atheists have in common. Non-belief. That's it. There are good atheists, there are bad atheists, just like any other group of people. There are good religious people, there are bad religious people. I mean, that I'm not sure how more simply I can put it. And there are different kinds of atheists. There are what they call Gnostic atheists, who will actually make the claim, a factual claim, that there is no God, and they know this to be fact. That, I think, is kind of stupid, because you're claiming you're doing the same thing that religious people do. You're claiming knowledge where there's none to be had. And there are agnostic atheists, which is a category I fall under, meaning I don't believe in any deities, gods, devils, saints, angels, demons, martyrs, all that shit. I don't believe in none of that, but I don't claim to have knowledge of it. I simply don't believe it. I don't claim to know that these things don't exist. I don't believe they do. I have not seen any compelling evidence that they do. So that's an agnostic atheist. They don't claim to have knowledge where there's none to be had. But as I just said, there is no evidence to support any religious claims. There are no facts other than geography, locations. There are no facts to be found in any religious texts. There's never been a global flood. There was no exodus of the Israelites out of Egypt. There are no talking snakes or talking donkeys or talking burning bushes. No virgin births. Nobody's walking on water. Nobody's turning water into wine. And nobody's feeding 5,000 people with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. Those things just don't happen. They've never happened. The only place anything like these things are documented is in religious texts, the Christian Bible. That's it. There's nothing to back it up. It's just a bogus claim. But, the cult of Christ definitely doesn't want to hear that because to them, their storybook is factual. And to me, that's just ridiculous. And they try to use, like I said, there are no facts to be had other than geography, locations. Yes, Israel is a real place. Egypt is a real place. Palestine's a real place. What else was there? Babylon and Persia and whatever, locations are mentioned throughout the Bible. Yeah, those are real places. Doesn't mean that the book is a factual history book. New York City's a real place. That doesn't mean Spider-Man is real. William Wallace was a real person. That doesn't mean Braveheart was a fucking documentary. But again, they don't want to hear that. You bring up anything that calls into question what they want to believe, and you worship Satan, you're a demon. I literally had someone tell me today, I rebuke the demons that are in you. Are you fucking kidding me? And this was on Facebook, and I replied back to the person. I'm like, save your rebukes and your prayers for church because we all know it's just performative. You really don't give a shit, and it's completely meaningless. And it's true that 90% of what these people do is strictly performative, just so they can show off how godly they are. Which in and of itself, if you actually look up what it means, that is taking their Lord's name in vain because they're completely disingenuous. They're not being sincere. So, they're guilty of breaking their own fucking rules, which is nothing new if you really think about it when it comes to religion. But all of the accounts in the Bible and in any holy text are second and third hand accounts written decades or centuries after the fact. And religious people love to just, not even religious people, but like I said, everything was written decades or centuries after the fact. And these texts were cherry picked by religious leaders to suit their own narrative. There are over 100 ancient texts that were rejected when the Bible was being compiled. They're from the same time periods, from the same geographical regions, but those texts didn't put forth the story that they wanted to tell. So they left them out. Those didn't count. And I'm going to say it again. I've said this many, many times. All religions, all of them, every single one without exception. I'm not just talking about Christianity. I'm talking about Judaism. I'm talking about Islam. I'm talking about Zoroastrianism. I'm talking about Scientology. I'm talking about Mormonism. Every religion on earth that ever has existed, ever will exist, or that exists today is a cult. Look up the meaning of the word cult. Every religion is a fucking cult. That is a fact. I will claim that as a fact. And also, all religions And all of their stories and mythology and dogma and everything is derived from older religions. Bear in mind, the cult of Christ has only been around for a little over 2,000 years. Everything that they believe in derived from somewhere else. The story of Noah was derived from the story of Gilgamesh. The story of Jesus was derived from the story of Horus. And all religions, all of them were created by men to gain control and obedience of weak-minded people through fear. Fear of their vengeful God, fear of eternal damnation, fear of excommunication, being shunned, or whatever. And when it comes to atheists, we don't need threats and fear to be a good person. If you talk to a religious person, it's most of them make it sound like the only reason they try to be good people, which a lot of them fail at, let's be real, they fucking fail. But a lot of the reason they try to be good people is because they don't want to go to hell. Well, that's a pretty fucked up reason. You're only a good person so that you don't get punished by your deity. So you're saying if your deity wasn't real, you wouldn't be a good person. You'd be out doing whatever the fuck you want to do, killing people, robbing, raping, pillaging, plundering, and you'd basically be a pirate. No. And they like to talk about objective morality. I did a whole show about that a couple weeks ago. There is no such thing. They like to say there'd be no morality without God. Fuck you. Because the morals of the biblical deity are pretty fucked up. Actually, read that book. Look at some of the shit that goes down in that book and tell me that that is a moral fucking deity. No. Hell no. But I've said it before. Atheists don't need threats and fear to be good people. Empathy and compassion are not religious concepts. They're human concepts. Having empathy and compassion for your fellow human beings, helping people out if they're in a bad situation or whatever it might be. These are not religious ideas. They existed long before religion did. And I've said it before. Again, I did a whole episode about morality a couple weeks ago. There is no such thing as objective morality that these people love to claim. Oh, without God, there'd be no objective morality. There is no objective morality. It doesn't exist. It never has. It is 100% subjective. It evolves over time and it varies by location. What is considered moral in one part of the world may not be considered moral in another part of the world. What was considered moral 200 years ago may not be considered moral today. It changes. It's subjective. And that's a fact. Look at human history. Look at the way things were like I said, 200 years ago, and they are now. There's shit you can't do now that was perfectly acceptable then. Like owning another human being. The cult of Christ's deity never had any issue with that. He just told them how to treat their slaves. Never said they shouldn't have them. But he's the beacon of morality, apparently. Bullshit. And that again is a huge issue when you bring it up with a religious person because they cannot reconcile how an all good, all knowing, all loving, ever present God can allow pain and suffering and injustice other than saying, well, free will. People have free will, so that's why those things happen. Fuck you. Fuck you. Because you think that your God is all powerful, but free will, human free will, somehow subverts that power. Make it make sense. You, so just admit your God's not all powerful. He just fucking put the shit into motion and sat back and watched. I mean, that is a more reasonable explanation than some of the bullshit that these people come up with. Let's be real. That I could at least handle coming from them because it makes sense. Oh, God is all powerful, but he doesn't interfere and he put things into motion. That's what deists believe, by the way, that there is a creator, but he doesn't interfere, intervene, or get involved with the matters of his creation. He just put things into motion and sat back and watched. That is the most sensible religious argument I've ever heard from deists, which you don't see a whole lot of anymore. A lot of the founding fathers were deists, but don't tell the cult of Christ that because they'll lose their fucking shit. But free will is completely contradictory when their deity, his whole thing is love and worship me or else. That's not exactly free will. And they say, oh, you still have a choice. I said this in a TikTok post a few days ago. Love and worship me or burn in hell forever sounds a whole lot like give me all your money or I'm putting one in your head. Religion is equivalent to armed robbery. I full on believe that. And another thing that religious people cannot reconcile is prayer. They pray for all these things. They pray for illnesses to get better. They pray for a better job. They pray for whatever. They pray for all kinds of shit. Basically, whatever they want. They, but then supposedly their God has a plan. If God has a plan, what the fuck good does prayer do? If everything that happens in the world was predetermined, predestined because of God's plan, why the fuck are you praying? Is he supposed to change his plan for you? Uh, Nobody can answer that. I've never heard any kind of rational, coherent answer to that question because there isn't one. Let's be real. There is no rational answer to that question. Another thing that religious people love to say is atheists just want to live in sin. Sin is a religious concept. It just means disobeying your deity. Doesn't apply to atheists. Doesn't apply to anybody outside of your cult. It's as simple as that. People who do not follow your deity are not subject to his rules. That's like saying uh, uh, someone in France has to follow the rules of the US, has to follow American law. That's fucking stupid. Or somebody coming over here from, say, the UK expecting everybody to follow British law. You're a fucking moron. Doesn't work that way. Your shit applies to you and the rest of your cult. That doesn't apply to us on the outside that that have reached the age of reason and critical thinking. But yeah, sin is a completely religious construct. Again, created by men to gain control and obedience over weak-minded fucking people. It just doesn't apply. And let's be real, the God of the Bible, and I keep referring to it because these are the biggest religions in the world. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, all three evolved from the same starting point. Christianity sprung off of Judaism, Islam sprung off of Christianity, and then, we still have shit springing off here and there, like Mormonism sprung off of Christianity and whatever. But so it all boils down to the same deity for the major religions of the world. But that particular deity, the God of the Bible, is a petty, vain, narcissistic, abusive, genocidal, cowardly, insecure, and evil motherfucker. God is the villain in the story. I'm sorry, there's no other way to explain it. Look at the fucking atrocities. But religious people will excuse them or make excuses for them, like the global flood, which again didn't actually happen, but for the sake of argument, talking about their stories, global flood, you wipe out the entire population of Earth because people were wicked. Wicked how? What were they doing? There's no detail in the story that says what these people were fucking doing that was so wicked, number one. And secondly, you're telling me every single one of them was guilty of whatever this wickedness was. Every single one, every man, woman, child, little baby, and the animals. I mean, they only saved two of each of those. Get the fuck out of here. That's the kind of shit that a fucking dictator does. That's the kind of shit that Hitler did. That's the kind of shit that Chairman Mao did. That's the kind of shit that Stalin did. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. And you expect people to worship this thing. It makes no rational or logical sense. And like I said, it's all fiction anyway. The flood didn't happen. None of that shit happened. And that I will state factually because there's literally no archaeological or historical evidence of it. None. It just, all of these stories are just simply not believable by any logical standard. They're ridiculous. View it for what it is as a story. Okay, it could, I could see it being an entertaining story, an interesting story, but to base your whole fucking life around it, you are gotta be out of your goddamn mind. And another thing religious people love to do, they love to come at atheists and say, well, prove God doesn't exist. Fuck you. Prove he does. The burden of proof is on the one making the positive claim, on the or the accusation or whatever it might be. It's like in court. You have to prove that that person committed that crime. You have to prove that they were there at that time on that day doing whatever it is they're accused of doing. If you are making the claim there is a God up in wherever, prove it. Bring some evidence. But they love trying to turn it around on atheists. You can't prove non-existence. Uh, you just can't. I mean, you can't prove that there's no such thing as unicorns or leprechauns or Bigfoot or aliens or anything else like that. You can't prove that these things don't exist. We simply think they don't exist because there's no real evidence for them, except for aliens. I mean, there's people claiming to see UFOs every day. We have multiple eyewitness accounts from multiple independent sources that claim to have seen UFOs. So the alien thing, there might actually, there's more evidence of fucking aliens than there is of any deities. Put it that way. But you cannot prove that Bigfoot does not exist. You cannot prove that unicorns do not exist. You also can't prove they do exist. But religious people think that the Bible is proof. They think, oh, just look around. There's so much proof. Where? What? Nature? Shit that has evolved and grown for millions of years all over the earth? No, that's not proof. Well, creation is proof of a creator. No, it's not. No, it's not. The earth simply existing and people and plants and trees and fucking animals and shit just simply existing is not proof of a deity. It just isn't. I'm sorry. It's not how that works. And the Bible damn sure isn't proof of any deity. Neither is the Quran, neither is the Torah, neither is any other religious text proof of any kind of deity. But they love to claim knowledge when there is none to be had. There is no knowledge to be had of any of this stuff. And they don't know the difference between knowledge and belief. They don't, for them, there is no line between the two. If they believe it, it must be true. Honestly, I don't know how some of these people survived middle school or advanced beyond middle school. Because it's ridiculous. They don't understand what words mean. They don't know what facts are. They don't know what knowledge is. They love to talk about truth. That's fine. Truth is subjective. I did an episode about that too. That kind of truth is subjective. It's based on strongly held beliefs. That's your truth. What's true for you is not true for me, or may not be true for the next person, or the next person, or the next person. Truth is subjective. But again, they like to conflate truth and fact. It's two different things. Just like they like to conflate belief and knowledge, two different things. These are all different things. Faith, belief, knowledge, truth, fact, all different things. Again, I did a whole episode about this shit. Go watch that one. It's called 10 Levels of Information. And the thing is, with atheists, we are perfectly fine saying, I don't know. Where did the universe come from? Don't know. How did it begin? Don't know. The earliest thing that we know about the universe is that at some point, like 14 billion years ago, it started expanding. And over the course of billions of years, stars and planets and life just evolved over time. But what was there before any of that? Or where, you know, where did all of this come from? Don't know. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not knowing. I don't need to make up imaginary stories in my head and give credit to an invisible creator who nobody's ever seen or heard or spoken to or anything else to satisfy my own insecurities about where life came from. And I'm perfectly comfortable saying, I don't know. Science will explain it one day. I'll probably be long gone by then, but they will. I mean, science constantly changing, evolving, learning, making discoveries. They'll figure it out one day. But religious people can't handle that. And as far as like the afterlife, what happens after you die? Don't know. Nobody's ever died and come back to tell us. But don't tell them that because their Messiah died and came back. No. But they believe in this whole afterlife and heaven and hell and purgatory and all this other kind of shit. Prove it. Where is heaven? Where is hell? Where are these places at? They love to claim that these are real places where you're going to go after you die. Cool. Where are they? And one of their favorite arguments, and I think this is where I'm going to wrap up the show here for this week. One of their favorite arguments when you ask, well, why, if God is so all-knowing and all-loving and all good and omnipresent and all this stuff, why does he allow all this suffering to continue happening and why doesn't he intervene and all this kind of stuff? And or when you ask them for proof of their God, like physical, tangible proof, one of their favorite arguments for all that, well, God exists outside of space and time and all this, outside of our reality. Okay, so God exists outside of our reality. By definition, anything that does not exist within reality is not real. So when they say that to you, point that out. If he exists outside of our reality, by definition, he's not real. Simple as that. Oh, but I think I've pissed enough people off for this week, so I'm gonna wrap stuff up. But yeah, atheism's not a religion or a belief system or a worldview or a philosophy or a cult or any of the other shit that religious people love to claim it to be. It just means one simple thing. You don't believe in any deities. That's it. But people can't handle that. That's okay. Maybe one of these days, they'll outlaw religion and all this shit will just, go away in a generation or two, but it's not going to happen in my lifetime. I know that. But anyway, again, thank you to everybody for checking out the show on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, or wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you follow, like, subscribe, share, rate, comment, all that kind of good stuff. It really does help out the show. Make sure you're following on social media. It's at DILLIGAF_pod on all socials. If you ever want to shoot me an email, it's DILLIGAFpod@gmail.com. And you can find all that on my Linktree, which is Linktree/DILLIGAF_pod, or scan the QR code right there in the corner of the screen if you're watching the video. And as always, if anyone has any issue with anything that I have said here today, ask yourself one question. Do I look like I give a fuck?
'Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want